Hi, it's Mike Chen. You know, they say that behind every powerful man, there is a woman. And behind every great empire in history, a powerful woman commanded legions. History has no shortage of kings, emperors, and generals lording over vast countries and leading large armies. But the question remains, are they always the ones who are really pulling the strings? If you would study the royal bloodlines of the Egyptian pharaohs alone, you would discover that many of their great leaders were actually women. The empresses of China also has impressive records of leadership. But since, as the saying goes, history is written by the winners, most of the women have been overshadowed by the accomplishments of their male counterparts, leaving their contributions and their exceptional personalities in the dark to be almost forgotten. And that is why in this video, we're gonna count down to 5 of the most powerful women who secretly ruled the world. And while there were hundreds of great female leaders in history, we have chosen to focus on the women whom history has almost forgotten, despite how large a contribution they made to human civilization. Number 5, Turigin. There is no argument that one of the greatest empires, if not the only one to have successfully conquered a third of the world, belonged to the Mongols. Cunning, fierce, intelligent, and extremely organized, the Mongol horde rode and invaded large parts of Asia and have stretched their domain to portions of Europe. After Genghis Khan died, his power passed on to his third son, Ogode. However, Ogode had a little problem controlling his drinking, and left much of his leadership to his wife Turigin. As historical records would later on show, Turigin was in fact responsible for many proclamations during her husband's reign. When Ogode finally drank himself to the grave, Turigin became his immediate successor until a new Khan could be elected. And because she was so cunning, she was able to delay the election for 5 years. And under her leadership, the Mongol Empire flourished from China to the far reaches of Russia. Having such a reputation for her leadership, prominent monarchs paid homage to her, like the Seljuk Sultan and the Grand Prince Yaroslav, who incidentally died mysteriously after sharing a feast with her. In order to secure power for her bloodline, Turigin campaigned for her son Guyuk to be elected the new Khan. Unfortunately for Guyuk, he was not completely trusted and everybody sort of hated him. But Turigin, in another display of extraordinary political acumen, bribed many in the empire, which was funded by a massive and aggressive form of tax on agriculture. Even though she was relentless, she finally died in 1246, a year after successfully securing Guyuk's place as the new Khan of the Mongol Empire. Number 4, Kösem Sultan. One of the most powerful women of the 17th century had the most interesting story. She was of Greek descent and came to Istanbul. Later on, when she was sold into the harem of Sultan Ahmed I, she soon took the name Kösem after being the favorite wife of the Sultan. After Ahmed's death, she made a move to secure her place in the imperial court by positioning Mustafa, Ahim's mentally ill brother, as the new Sultan, thus allowing her to succeed with little protest from the people around her. However, due to his mental state, Mustafa did not stay Sultan longer than Kösem expected, and Mustafa's nephew Osman swiftly took the throne and easily deposed the Sultan. This event forced Kösem to leave Istanbul and remained in hiding for fear of retribution from Osman. But in 1623, Kösem triumphantly returned to Istanbul after Osman was murdered by his own soldiers, and the 11-year-old Murad IV, Kösem's son, became Sultan. During the reign of Murad as Sultan, Kösem became a regent for much of his childhood, ruling the Ottoman Empire from behind the throne for well over a decade. When Murad died in 1640, power passed on to his mentally ill brother Ibrahim. Unfortunately, Kösem found Ibrahim difficult to control, and in 1648 organized his murder. Kösem's young son Mehmed IV ascended the throne, and Kösem's power as regent of the Ottoman Empire became firmly cemented. Number 3, Boadicea. She is one of Britain's most iconic heroes and a queen whose story sadly has been swept under the rug to give way for the monarchs that are much more popular but no less powerful. Boadicea is the queen of the Iceni, a tribe in East England that existed during the 1st century AD, leading one of the greatest battles against the Roman Empire around 60 to 61 AD. Boadicea was victorious in uniting a number of British tribes to defeat the Romans that encroached on British soil. In more ways than one, 1, she can be described as a warrior queen, and her rallying cry was recorded by historian Tacitus, and it goes like this: "We British are used to women commanders in war. I am descendants from mighty men, but I am not fighting for my kingdom and wealth now. I am fighting as an ordinary person for my lost freedom, my bruised body, and my outraged daughters. That is what I am, a woman, plan to do." Alright, so it's a little less dramatic than the whole "they will never take our freedom" thing, but hey, it worked. With this battle cry, Boudicca's victory was secured. However, this victory would not last as long as they had hoped. The Romans began to rally their troops and crush the revolt in one swift wave of attack. The Iceni were slain and executed to the point of extinction, and those that managed were lucky enough to survive the Roman assault were taken in as slaves. Even though Boudicca's victory was short-lived, she is remembered throughout history as one of the most courageous warrior queens who fought for freedom from oppression for herself and all the Celtic tribes of the British Isles. Number 2. Edith Bolingbalt Wilson. Woodrow Wilson led America's entrance and victory in World War I. He also shaped the League of Nations, and perhaps his most important contribution to history, granting women the right to vote. However, despite his success and hallmark contributions to the US and the free world, he is only human, and in 1919, President Wilson suffered a stroke that paralyzed the entire left side of his body, preventing him to run at full capacity. It was due to this unfortunate incident that Edith Bolingbalt Wilson, First Lady of the United States, was placed in a unique position of power, and this happened even before women were allowed to vote. As the so-called keeper of the presidency, Edith kept her husband's weakened condition from his staff for 6 weeks. In her memoirs, Edith claims that she only decided on which matters to bring to the president and which ones could be decided on without him. Though she never had the authority to sign official documents on her husband's behalf, the position of deciding on what the president should and should not see was still an utterly significant amount of power. At one point, Edith fought against having the vice president take her husband's office, and many people would even refer to her as the first female president of the United States. Her role during her husband's presidency was not as grandiose or as violent as some of the other women on this list, but it cannot be argued that to have the power to essentially decide on behalf of the most powerful man in the free world is a position that deserves a general amount of merit. And finally, number 1, Olympias. Alexander the Great ruled an empire that stretched across Europe into Asia and North Africa, and the great appended to his name was well earned through blood and sweat. A fierce general and a fearsome leader, Alexander ruled his empire atop a mighty throne. But while he enjoyed the comfort of his seat, the real strings were being pulled behind the throne. Olympias, mother to Alexander, was beautiful and powerful in the cult of the god Dionysus. Perhaps she was history's original femme fatale, what with her cunning and remarkable intelligence and the brutal ways she trampled over anyone who tried to pry power from the hands of her son. In one story, when Alexander's claim to power was threatened by revolt, coups, and discontented politicians, Olympias spread rumors that her son was born out of an affair she supposedly had with the god Zeus, thus making Alexander a demigod. Spreading like wildfire, the rumor turned to truth, and Olympias effectively secured an entire lifetime for Alexander to sit on his throne. She was also a scornful lover. In another historical account, when her husband divorced her and married another woman, Olympias ordered her husband's assassination, and in a move to maintain Alexander's place in power, she also had her ex-husband's children killed in order to stamp out any competing claim to the throne. In Alexander's absence, his regent Antipater was to rule in his stead. However, Olympias was able to subvert Antipater's authority and quash every ruling he would decree. Even after Alexander's death, Olympias continued to wage war and ordered Alexander's armies to march into countries and regions that have not yet been invaded. And despite the presence of a regent to conduct all affairs of state until a new leader is installed, Olympias continued to exhibit an extraordinary amount of power and ran an empire on a scale that is yet to be rivaled by anyone. Olympias' hold was so strong that in his dying breath, Antipater's last words were a warning that women should never be allowed to lead. So there you go, guys. Those are 5 powerful women who secretly rule the world. And let me ask you a question. If you had the option to marry one of these powerful female rulers or empresses, would you do it? I mean, it'd be great because you're marrying a powerful woman, but at the same time, maybe don't upset her. And I'm just wondering, is Wonder Woman right now, let's say she does exist, wouldn't she be the most powerful woman in the world? Yeah, I think I'd marry her. All right, guys, thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you later.